the changes it had to encompass. I'd let you stay up too late. By the time you brushed your teeth and got into your pajamas, your voice was mostly whine, and you didn't want to read any of your stories or hear any of the songs that usually calmed you down. My reserves were gone after a day out and about, crafts at the library, grocery shopping, a play date with a friend you liked, but I didn't know well enough to know how to be anything but awkward with her mother. I still couldn't always communicate appropriately. All of the usual questions with all the usual easy answers were landmines I had to either carefully avoid or choose to step on directly, risking the predictable explosion of sympathy or incomprehension. Keeping my voice as even as I could, I sat down on the edge of your bed and held your shoulders so that you met my eyes. If you don't want a story or a song, then you need to tell me what you do want. It's bedtime and we both need to get some sleep, sweetheart. Your hand went up to your hair, twirling a ringlet into a tangle. After resisting this long, your eyes were heavy and you were close to surrender. I guess I could listen to the tape again, Mom. The tape with the Alley Valley song on it. Could you make me some tea? Thank goodness. When you finally decided what it was you needed, it made it a lot easier on me. Sure, honey, I'll put the water on and you find the tape. You nodded, heading over to the bookshelf where your tape player lived. I stood at the sink for a long time, water spilling over the kettle and splashing on my hand before I snapped back from wherever I'd been. Half the time I didn't know where I was. Half the time I forgot what I was doing halfway through. You were the only person who could usually keep me focused, who could usually remind me. By the time I'd gotten the kettle on the stove and put a bag of Sleepy Time into your favorite mug, the one with a picture of you and Maggie dancing in your bumblebee costumes on Halloween, I could hear music coming out of your room. Good job, I said, wiping my wet hands on the back of my t-shirt. You got the tape to play all by yourself. You grinned at me and hopped up on the bed. I know, Mom, and I even pushed the rewinding button before I pushed the playing button. Settling down onto your pillows, fingers still twisting and pulling that one tired curl, you blinked at me, eyelids fluttering with your struggle to keep them open. Is tomorrow my birthday, Mom? No, it's the next day. Tomorrow's Monday. Today is Monday. Your birthday is Thursday. You smiled, finally letting go of your hair and holding both arms out for a hug. So it's tomorrow, you said into my shoulder. Yes, it is, I said, stroking your back. Okay. It was October. 4 months before, your father had an acute coronary occlusion and died while I was giving him CPR. You called 911. Or maybe you just got the phone for me? Those details blur. I recall what I've told. I recall the thin skin of sweat on his face seconds before the seizure. I recall the moment he quit breathing, and it was only my breath going in and out of his lungs. I recall telling you to watch for the ambulance. Life keeps moving ahead even when it's not recognizable anymore. You were 3, I was 30. We had a brand new home we'd moved into less than 6 weeks before. I had a mortgage, multiple copies of the death certificate, and the ability to at least function most of the time. There were dinners and breakfasts and bedtimes. Breakfasts I could rarely eat, bedtimes I often forgot. You asked me impossible questions I did my best to answer. You were about to turn 4. We traded your tricycle for a tiny bike with training wheels. My friends who were single parents became my gurus. We tucked our children into the pull-out couch bed with a movie, sat on the back porch drinking wine or coffee. I studied the new role I had no choice but to play. The kettle whistled and I kissed your cheek before getting up to make the tea. When I bit back into your room, you'd fallen asleep on your side, fingers back in your hair, your breath gentle against the pillow. I set the tea on top of your dresser and lay down next to you, just looking at your face. Long eyelashes you inherited from my uncle, a perfect nose sprinkled with freckles, your father's cheekbones. My chest tightened, and for a moment I thought it was an anxiety attack. They'd visited often in the last 4 months, and I didn't know yet how to identify their beginnings. Then your hand moved from your hair and settled on my hand. The love built from my chest and spread through my body, fierce and pure and entirely encompassing. I gripped your hand, not to wake you, just to hang on to what I was feeling long enough to identify. I loved you more than I could ascribe to any feeling. Your dad and I used to talk about love as bigger than emotion. It's a state of being, he used to say, and though I agreed, I didn't really know what he meant, or even what I meant the times I said it. I didn't know until I felt it. There was no choice. It settled over me and I looked at you for a long time, holding your hand, watching you sleep. I realized that the reason it seemed so unfamiliar was that I hadn't been able to feel it, not for months. I loved you. I knew that infallibly. I just didn't have the capacity to really experience it for a while. I met your dad when I was 8. He was 10. We were childhood friends, lovers in our late teens, lived together for 9 years, and got married on Leap Day, a year before I got pregnant with you. I have very few memories of life without him. My mind didn't know what to make of the changes it had to encompass. I forgot how to feel anything but the void I carried in my belly at all times, unrelenting. A few weeks later, you woke up in the middle of the night, wailing. Your hand on your chest, you asked me with halting, sobbing breaths for a Band-Aid. I held you on my lap and looked. There was no bruise, no cut, no visible injury of any kind. How did you hurt yourself, sweetheart? I moved my hand in gentle circles over your collarbone, your shoulder, your chest. My heart hurts, Mom. It hurts bad. I need a Band-Aid. Burying your head in the crook of my arm, you repeated it, softer. I need a Band-Aid. Holding you, rocking your small body as it shook with sobs, I thought about saying something about a Band-Aid not working for this kind of pain. I thought about pain itself, how sometimes it's useful, it's a relief to feel obvious injury. When your crying slowed, and I'd helped you blow your nose on the edge of my t-shirt, I picked you up, even though you were getting too big to easily carry anymore, and took you with me into the bathroom. Setting you down on the edge of the sink for a minute, I got several Band-Aids out of the medicine cabinet, wet a washcloth, set you on my hip, and took you back to bed. Your body was limp from all your tears. I folded the washcloth into quarters and placed it on your forehead. Do you want a Hello Kitty Band-Aid or a Sesame Street Band-Aid? I have one more. Let's see. Oh, it's a Toy Story Band-Aid. I moved the washcloth so that it was centered on your forehead. Which one would you like? I like the Sesame Street one, Mom, you said, reaching out to hold them, especially if it has Cookie Monster. And I like the Hello Kitty one too, but Daddy liked Toy Story a lot. We went and saw it, remember? He liked Buzz Lightyear. To infinity and beyond. A tiny smile crept across your face. I want the Toy Story one. I unwrapped the Band-Aid, placed it carefully on your chest, smoothed it down, and climbed into bed beside you. You put your hand on my shoulder, and I held you there, humming a lullaby. Soon we were both asleep. Thank you.